Everyone, and welcome back to lesson 27.1, part 2. Today we are going to start on page 394 in your Springboard books. Now, yesterday we left off talking about our circles in the equation of a circle when we are given the center and a point on the circle. And we talked about plugging in h and k and then plugging in that point x and y to be able to help us figure out what the r squared value would be to ultimately find the equation of our circle. We're going to kind of continue on with that idea today on page 394 in talking about what happens now if they give us the endpoints of the diameter versus the points of the center of that circle and a point on it. So think about a circle and what it means to have a diameter. And it's not a great drawn circle, but it's a circle nonetheless. And when we have the endpoints of the diameter like we do here, given, we have 2 points on the circle, right? The endpoints of the diameter are actually just 2 points on the circle. So it kind of relates to that problem we talked about yesterday because we have at least 1 point on the circle. The other thing that's special about our diameter is that point in between the 2 points on the circle, that's our center point. So in order to find the center, we can use the midpoint of our 2 given points to find that center. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the 2 x values, -1 and 9. We're going to add them up and divide by 2. And then we're going to also do that with the y values, 4 and -2. Add them up, divide by 2. So -1 plus 9 is 8. And then 4 plus -2 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now we do have our center point. We do have h and k. And just like yesterday, we can plug those values in to our standard equation of a circle in order to help us figure out r squared, because now we do have h and k to use. Now, just like yesterday, though, we need to figure out what that r squared value is. So that's where these endpoints of the diameter come into play, because remember, they're 2 points on the circle. So we can use either one, whatever one you want to use, and we could plug them in for x and y, and that would allow us to figure out what r squared is. So again, if we plug in, let's say we're going to use 9 and -2, we would have 9 minus 4 is 5 squared, and then -2 minus 1 is -3 squared. So we have 25 plus 9, which is 4, would be our answer there. Okay, and then our final answer, of course, is we want to rewrite this so that our answer is in the correct standard form where we don't have x and y plugged in, just h and k. And we're going to just use now this new r squared value that we found up above of 34 to be able to find our final answer here. And again, it didn't matter if you plugged in 9, -2 or -1, 4, you should have gotten 34 as your answer either way. Now, just to talk a little bit about graphing our circles, let's say I gave you this circle from up above, where we said, if we are looking at this equation of the circle, if we wanted to practice graphing this, right? I'm going to put it over here to the side, and again, it equaled 34. Remember, our center is at 4, 1. So I would count to the right 4 and up 1 on my graph to graph here. And then remember, our radius is the square root of 34, which, if we approximate this in our calculators, the square root of 34 is going to be approximately a little bit bigger than 5, close to 6, right? So square root of 34 is about 5.8. So on our graph, in order to graph this, we would go up from our center point about 5.8 or almost 6. So right here, and then we would go to the left 6, down to 5.8, so again about 6, and then to the right, which would be a little off our graph. So in order to graph this, then we would connect those points, 1, 2, again, that are 5.8 around. So in order to graph, remember you're going to write down your center and then count up, down, left, right, the amount from that center that your radius would be in order to graph, okay? All right, last but not least, we are going to talk then about, on page 395, a couple of more of these problems. Now, they do not give you very much room to write on these problems, so please make sure that on page 395 you use the My Notes section or the space down below the lesson practice space, okay, because you're going to want some space to do these. So for part A, this goes back to what we talked about in yesterday's lesson, where they're giving us the center, and then they're also giving us a point on our circle. It's passing through this point that we could use as an x comma y. So we're going to start by plugging in to the equation of our circle the center that we do in fact know, which is h and k. And in order to help us find that r squared value, we have to plug in x and y. Okay. Now, 0 minus 3 is negative 3 squared, and then negative 2 minus 6 more is negative 8. So we end up with negative 3 squared is 9, negative 8 squared is 64. A reminder, when you're typing these in the calculator, make sure you're using those parentheses if it's negative. Okay, all of these should be positive values. And then 9 plus 64 is 73. So our final answer, x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 6 quantity squared equals 73. And then one more like we talked about today with the diameters, with the endpoints. What we would need to do here is we would need to start by finding the center, because remember we have the diameter endpoints here and here. These are points on the circle. We need to start by finding that midpoint of them, which is the center of our circle. So our center is going to be found at the midpoint. So we're going to add up our two x values and divide by 2. And then we're going to add up our two y values and divide by 2. So 2 plus negative 10 is negative 8. 5 plus 7 is 12. And both of those divided by 2 give us a center point of negative 4, 6. Now again, this is our center, so this is telling us the h and the k. So when we plug in x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And again, we have minus a negative, so we know that turns into addition. And then the k is going to be minus 6. And again, to test out the r squared, it does not matter if you use 2 and 5 or negative 10 and 7. I'm going to use 2 and 5 because I like dealing with positive numbers only. So if I have that option, I'm going to use it. So 2 and 5 get plugged in. 2 plus 4 is 6 squared. 5 minus 6 is negative 1 squared. So 36 plus 1, again, negative number squared or positive, gives us 37. So our final answer for the equation of this circle is x plus 4 quantity squared plus y minus 6 quantity squared equals 37. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will definitely be dealing more with this practice in class.